My name is Margaret. I'm 68 years old, and my only son once told me I was a burden. Not to my face, of course. He said it with soft words, polite smiles, and decisions made behind my back. One afternoon, he and his wife took me out for lunch. We laughed. We ate soup. They talked about how tired I must feel, living alone in an old house. I didn't think much of it then. I thought they were being kind. But later that day, they dropped me off at a care home. A nurse took my bag. My son gave me a hug and said, "It's just for a few days, Mom. You need to rest." I didn't have my phone. I didn't have a charger. I didn't even pack a second pair of shoes. And then they left. I stood there, confused, in a place that smelled like bleach and fake flowers. The walls were beige. The windows were too small. There were no photos, no books, no music, just silence. Cold, empty silence. They said I had signed papers. They said I had agreed to stay. But I hadn't. My name was there. My signature wasn't. That's when I knew. My son had made a plan. A quiet, careful plan to move into my house, take my things, and push me out of the story like I didn't matter anymore. But what he forgot is that I'm not easy to erase. I may be old, but I remember everything. And I had time. Time to think. Time to plan. Time to remind him exactly who raised him. I didn't always live alone. The house used to be full of voices, footsteps, the smell of toast in the morning. My husband, Frank, built that house brick by brick before we got married. It wasn't big, but it had character. The hallway arched like a smile, and sunlight came through the front window like warm honey. Frank passed away when Ethan, our son, was only 11. I remember the day clearly. Rain on the window. A silence too big for our little house. After that, it was just me and Ethan. I became everything. Mother, father, caretaker, teacher, protector. I made his lunches and mended his school shirts. I worked 2 jobs for nearly 10 years. When money was tight, I went without. I skipped dinners so he could have full lunches. I pawned my wedding ring to buy him a suit for his high school graduation. He looked so handsome that day. I told him he looked like a man. He smiled like one too. I didn't ask for thanks. I just wanted to see him happy. When Ethan went off to college, I cried for a week straight. The house felt too quiet again, but this time, it was a good kind of quiet. A proud kind. I had done something right. I believed that love, when given fully, would one day come back around. He met Ashley in his 2nd year. I didn't know much about her at first. She was polite, well-dressed, always with perfect hair and a soft voice. She called me ma'am and brought store-bought cake to dinner. She didn't ask about our family, or our stories, or Frank, but I smiled anyway. She made Ethan happy. That was enough for me. They married 2 years later and bought a place across town. I visited sometimes, not often. They were busy with work, with travel, with parties and plans. Ashley always seemed tired, like my presence was extra weight. Ethan started calling less. Sometimes I didn't hear from him for weeks. I told myself he was just busy, building a life. That's what I wanted, wasn't it? Then, a few months ago, I fainted in the kitchen. Just for a moment. I hadn't eaten all day and stood too long. I woke up on the floor with a sore hip. When Ethan heard, he rushed over with Ashley. They looked concerned. Brought soup. Sat on the couch like a couple in a hospital waiting room. "Mom, we just want what's best for you," he said. Ashley nodded. "It's too much for you to be alone here. They asked about old documents. Insurance, deeds, bank papers. I didn't think much of it. Ethan was my son. He'd never hurt me. I trusted him like I trusted the ground beneath my feet. Over the next few days, they kept coming by, checking the locks, asking who had spare keys, suggesting I take it easy, let them handle things. Ashley brought over frozen meals and set them up in my freezer. I noticed the locks had been changed, but when I asked, she smiled and said it was for my safety. Then came the lunch invitation. "Just the three of us," Ethan said. "You need a break." I didn't wear my good shoes. I didn't pack a bag. I thought we were going for soup again. We drove to a quiet place just outside town. A long driveway, a brick building with low windows. Ethan pulled into the lot and turned off the engine. "Just for a few days, Mom," he said. "We're worried." I felt cold inside, like I'd swallowed ice. A nurse came out with a clipboard. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ashley hugged me. Her lip gloss was cold on my cheek. Ethan squeezed my hand. "You'll thank us later," he whispered. And just like that, they were gone. I stood on the sidewalk, holding my purse with both hands like it was the only thing I owned. My name was already on the door. I didn't cry. Not then. I just walked inside. I didn't know it yet, but that was the day my son stopped being my son. The room they gave me was small. Beige walls. A single bed I didn't choose. A wooden dresser, no family photos. No calendar, no books. Just a clock on the wall that ticked too loud at night. The nurse smiled kindly when she showed me in, but her kindness felt like it came from habit, not heart. I asked for a phone to call Ethan. She said I'd have to wait until visiting hours. I said he just left. She looked confused. Then she handed me a paper. My name was printed neatly across the top, next to boxes I didn't check and a signature that looked too perfect to be real. Medical consent, residential admission, observation status. He had signed me in like I was a stranger needing care, like I wasn't his mother, like I wasn't still alive. I sat on the bed with my hands folded in my lap, the same way I used to sit in church. I stared at the floor and tried not to shake, but I shook anyway. I thought about calling out. Screaming, maybe. But something inside me said no. Screaming would only make them believe the lie. That I was losing my mind. That I was dangerous or confused. I wasn't going to give them that. The food was bland, but warm. The nurses were polite, but distant. I saw others in the hallway. Some in wheelchairs, some staring at nothing, some yelling at shadows. I didn't belong there, but no one asked if I did. 3 days passed. I didn't hear from Ethan, not a single call, not even a message. On the 4th day, I was allowed to use the facility phone. I dialed his number, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Still nothing. Then I called Ashley. She picked up once. I heard her voice say, "Hello?" Then silence. Then she hung up. When I called again, I was blocked. I sat in the chair by the window, staring at the courtyard outside. A bird landed on the fence for a moment. Then it flew away. I watched the sun fall across the floor in stripes, through the blinds, and wondered how it had come to this. How a woman who gave everything could be locked away like a forgotten suitcase. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on top of the covers and counted the ceiling tiles. I thought about Frank, about our little house, about the rose bush we planted the year Ethan was born. I thought about the sound of his little feet running through the kitchen. I thought about every small kindness I gave him and how none of it seemed to matter anymore. But then, something inside me shifted. I remembered who I was. I didn't survive cancer, widowhood, and raising a son alone just to end my story like this. I was not confused. I was not weak. I was not finished. The next morning, I asked the night nurse if I could have a notebook. I told her I liked to write. She smiled and said she'd bring me one from the activity room. It was small, spiral bound, with a blue cover. I held it like it was gold. I started writing everything I remembered. Bank accounts, dates, phone numbers, old friends, property deeds, lawyer names. I didn't write poetry, I didn't write prayers, I wrote plans. I remembered Helen Pierce, the lawyer who helped me update my will years ago after Frank died. We hadn't spoken in a long time, but she never removed me from her client list. That afternoon, I used my one phone call to leave her a message. "Hello, Helen. This is Margaret Ellis. I believe my son has committed fraud using my name and placed me in a care facility without my consent. I still have access to my legal documents. Please call me." I didn't expect a fast reply, but the next day, just before lunch, the nurse said I had a visitor. Helen walked in like a storm, neatly dressed, briefcase in one hand, fire in her eyes. She looked at me for a long second, then said, "You're not staying here another day, and if they make this hard, we sue them too." I could have cried, but I didn't. I nodded once, calm as ever. We sat together in that room, surrounded by beige walls and ticking clocks, and I told her everything. What Ethan had done, what Ashley had said, the papers, the phone calls, the silence, all of it. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. And then she said, "We start now." We called the bank. We filed a motion to revoke the forged documents. We demanded a medical evaluation. The doctor, to his credit, told Helen that I showed no signs of dementia. None at all. That went in writing. And finally, we froze the account Ethan was using to pay for his house. A house I still legally owned. That night, I sat in my chair again, but this time, I smiled. Because the story wasn't ending here. It was just beginning. I left the care home on a Wednesday afternoon. No goodbyes, no warm send-off, just a paper bag of my clothes and a quiet walk out the front door. Helen walked beside me. Her briefcase bumped gently against her leg with every step, like it had a purpose too. The sun felt different that day. Warmer, brighter, like it knew I had survived something I wasn't supposed to. We didn't go back to my house. I didn't want to walk into a place where my name had been erased. Helen booked us into a private suite at an extended stay hotel. She said, "Let's get you settled, then we work." That evening, we spread papers across the small table. Bank statements, old deeds, phone records, signatures. Helen's voice was calm, but firm. "Your son forged your name. He misused your finances. That's elder fraud. You have every right to press charges." I looked at her and said, "I don't want to destroy him. I just want him to remember who he underestimated." She nodded. "Then we take everything back. Quietly." The next few days were full of phone calls, signatures, court motions, and one very important decision. I didn't want the house back. I wanted a new chapter. So, we filed a petition to force the sale of the property. Ethan had no legal claim to it, and I had never given him permission to live there. If he refused to leave, we would go to court. The house was still in my name, and that meant I had the final word. That weekend, I got a call from a real estate agent. She had a young couple interested in the house. Newly married, first-time buyers. They came to see it on a Sunday morning. I didn't go, but Helen did. Later, she told me they loved it, loved the garden, loved the arched hallway, loved the soul of the place. They're offering full cash, Helen said. You want it? I nodded. Let them have it. It needs new love. The sale went through in less than 2 weeks. Ethan didn't say a word, but Ashley did. She sent me a message. You're destroying our lives. I looked at the screen for a moment, then typed one sentence. No, I'm returning what you stole. And then I blocked her. With the money wired into my account, I made my next move. I didn't buy a condo in the city. I didn't move far away. I bought the house next door. Yes, the one right beside the house I had just sold. It was smaller, one floor, clean, bright windows, a quiet garden in the back, and the kitchen faced the same street where Ethan now lived, just a few steps away, but a world apart. Helen did the paperwork. I signed with a steady hand. I call this peaceful warfare, she joked. I call it home, I said. The first day I moved in, I wore my favorite blue dress and sat on the porch with a cup of sweet tea. The air was cool, the breeze soft. I felt like myself again. Ethan stepped outside with a trash bag in one hand and his phone in the other. He froze when he saw me. His face went pale. He turned around and went right back inside. I didn't move. I just took another sip of tea. Over the next few days, I saw Ashley less and less. She started parking on the far side of the driveway. She pulled the curtains tighter. She left early and came home late. One morning, I watched her drive off with a suitcase in the back seat. She didn't come back. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just planted roses along the fence. Red ones, the kind that bloom like little flames in the sun. Every morning, I watered them. Every evening, I sat on the porch and watched the light fall across the petals. Some people called it petty. I called it peace. I baked banana bread for the new couple next door. I waved at the mailman. I chatted with neighbors who used to ignore me. And Ethan? He stayed inside. Most days, I only saw the light from his TV flickering through the curtains. At night, he'd sit outside alone. No music, no wine, just him and whatever thoughts kept him company. One afternoon, my grandson, Liam, came walking down the sidewalk. Backpack over one shoulder, sneakers untied. He stopped at my gate and said, "Grandma, can I sit with you a while?" I smiled. "Of course, baby. Always." We sat together, sipping tea, watching the street. He looked at me and said, "They told me you were confused. But you're not." "No," I said softly. "I never was." And in that moment, I knew I had won. Not just the legal case, not just the house. I had won something deeper. Something Ethan would never touch again. My dignity. Liam started coming over more often after that day on the porch. He said the house felt calmer. He liked the quiet, the warmth, the way I always had something cooking in the kitchen. He helped me with the garden. We planted tomatoes, green beans, and a row of bright marigolds along the path. I taught him how to mix soil and how to check the roots. He called our little garden the Peace Patch. Sometimes he stayed for dinner, sometimes for the weekend. I didn't ask too many questions about his home. I already knew the answers. One night, as we sat at the kitchen table eating baked chicken and cornbread, he said, "Dad just sits in front of the TV now. He doesn't talk much, doesn't ask where I go. It's like he's not even there." I didn't respond right away. I just nodded. Some truths are too heavy to carry all at once. Later that week, Ethan came to my door. He didn't knock at first, just stood there. I watched him through the curtain, hands in his pockets, head low, like a child who had been sent outside after misbehaving. When I finally opened the door, he looked different, tired, lost. "Can I talk to you?" he asked. I stepped outside but didn't invite him in. He stared at the floor. "Danielle's gone. She left last week. Said she couldn't handle it anymore." I said nothing. He continued, "I thought I was doing the right thing. I don't know. I got scared. I thought taking control would make things easier." "You didn't take control," I said quietly. "You took what didn't belong to you." He nodded. "I know. I was wrong." There it was, a sentence I'd waited months to hear. "I don't expect anything," he added. "I just wanted to say it." I looked at him. I saw the boy I once held through fevers and nightmares, the man who'd lost his way. "I forgive you," I said, "but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean trust." He swallowed hard. "I understand. You need to fix what's inside you," I said, "and you won't do it on my porch." Then I turned and went back inside. That evening, Liam helped me bake sweet potato pie. As the smell filled the kitchen, he looked up and said, "Was that him?" I nodded. "What did he say?" "Something I'd already heard in my heart," I said, "but it's not my job to carry it anymore." He nodded, and we set the table. 2 weeks later, Ethan moved out. No U-Haul, no goodbye, just silence. The house sat empty for a while, then the for sale sign went up. I didn't watch it every day, but I noticed the curtain stayed closed. No lights on, no laughter, just a hollow shell. And I felt nothing. Not joy, not anger, just peace, the kind that grows slow, like roots finding new soil. That winter, Liam and I started a new tradition. Every Sunday, we cooked dinner together. We invited one neighbor each week just to talk, to share stories, to laugh around the table. I wanted him to grow up knowing that love isn't loud and family isn't perfect. It's built, not just born. One morning, I got a letter in the mail from Helen. Inside was the final version of my will. Neat, clear, just the way I wanted it. The house I now lived in would go to Liam when he turned 21. Until then, a trust fund would cover his school, clothes, and anything he needed to grow strong and kind. The rest of my estate, every dollar saved from the house sale, from old insurance, and from years of quiet sacrifice, was going to a new project I'd started with Helen, the Margaret Ellis Foundation. It would help older women who had been pushed aside, women whose children called them burdens, women who needed someone to remind them that they still mattered. I made the first donation myself, $50,000. Liam helped me deliver the check to the community center. He asked, "Why not put your name on a building?" "Because the women who need it don't care whose name is on the wall," I said. "They just need the door to be open." That Sunday, the church asked me to speak at their elder care event. I stood in front of a room full of women, most of them older than me, all of them carrying stories like mine. "They will call you weak," I said. "They will call you a burden. But let me tell you, there is power in knowing who you are, and there is peace in taking your life back." Some clapped, a few cried. One woman hugged me so tightly, I thought my heart would break open again. But it didn't. It just got stronger. That night, I sat by the window, sipping tea while Liam cleaned the dishes. The garden was sleeping under the winter frost, but I could already see spring in my mind. He looked up from the sink and said, "You're not a burden, Grandma." I smiled. "I know, baby. I know that now." The roses in the garden started to bloom again, bright reds and soft pinks. The marigolds opened like small suns along the fence. Liam called it our second season. He said the garden looked stronger than last year. I said, so do we. Ethan didn't return. After the house sold, the new owners moved in quickly. A young couple, teachers. They waved from the porch one morning, and I waved back. I baked them a pie the next weekend. They said the house felt warm, like it had a memory inside it. I smiled, but didn't say much. Some stories are best left in the soil. Liam was doing better in school. His teacher said he was focused, kind, curious. He started a youth gardening club at church. They met twice a month. He showed the other kids how to plant tomatoes, how to check the leaves for bugs, how to care for something small until it grows into something strong. One evening, he came in from the backyard and said, I think we should add lavender next season. I laughed. Lavender gives me headaches. He grinned. Then we'll plant it out front, where it won't bother you. He was growing in the right direction. That summer, I was invited back to the community center to speak again. This time, for a panel on elder justice. I sat beside two other women who had faced similar betrayals. One was tricked into signing away her pension. The other had her name removed from her own home. We shared our stories, not to stay angry, but to stay awake. After the event, a woman approached me. She was in her 70s, wore a dark green coat, and held her purse tightly against her chest. You said you forgave your son, she said. Did he ever come back? I looked at her. Her eyes were full of something heavy. Maybe regret, maybe hope. No, I said gently. And I didn't ask him to. She nodded. I still wait for my daughter's call every Sunday. It never comes. I reached out and held her hand. That's not your failure. It's hers. She smiled through tears. Thank you. That night, I wrote a letter to myself. I hadn't done that in years, not since Frank died. I wrote about the pain, yes, but mostly I wrote about the peace that came after. The garden, the porch, the sound of Liam's laughter in the kitchen. I ended the letter with one line. You were never a burden. You were the root that held everything together. I folded the paper and placed it in the notebook, the same one I had started in that care home, the one filled with account numbers, names, and plans. Now, it held closure too. One morning in early fall, Liam found the notebook on the table. What's this? He asked. My story, I said, all of it. He flipped through the pages slowly, reading lines, names, and notes I had written with shaky hands but a strong mind. Can I keep it one day? Of course, I said. It's yours now. A week later, we received a letter from a school Liam wanted to attend. It was a small boarding school with a garden program and a strong writing department. He had been accepted. He looked nervous when he told me. I smiled and said, go, grow, and write it all down. He hugged me longer than usual that night. Didn't say much, just held on. And when he left for school the following month, I stood on the porch, waving with a smile, and a heart that didn't feel broken, just full. The days after that were quiet, but not lonely. I still went to the market, still baked, still watered the roses. I started painting again. Small canvases, colors that made me feel calm. Sage green, soft blue, gold. And once a week, I opened my mailbox and found a letter from Liam. Sometimes he wrote about the garden, sometimes about a class, sometimes he just wrote, I miss you. One day, I opened a letter and found a photo inside. It was him standing in front of a small greenhouse. His note read, planted the lavender in the front, just like you said. I laughed. I cried. I sat on the porch and let the breeze carry it all, the memories, the pain, the joy, the stillness. That evening, I made tea, pulled a blanket over my knees, and watched the light fall across the marigolds. The house next door was quiet now. No shouting, no footsteps, just wind through the trees and the soft buzz of summer. I closed my eyes and breathed in deep, not because I was tired, but because I was finally, completely free.